I've been looking for a front rim for a Harley Davidson Sportster project that I'm working on, and I happened to see this rim listed on eBay. So I contacted the guy, asked him if the rim had any obvious damage and was straight. He wrote back that the rim was straight and it looked good. So I bid on it and I won it at $60 with free shipping. So 5 days later, FedEx brings me the box. Now, the first thing I need to do is remove the brake rotor from the hub. Now, I have experience with this style brake rotor and hub, and one of the problems with it is the screws are actually 2 sizes too small. And what happens over time, the screws get corroded, and when you go to turn the screw out, the Allen head usually reams out. And that's what it did in 4 of the 5 screws here. So what you have to do is cut the brake rotor away from each screw. So when you go to turn the screw, you can turn the remaining portion of the brake rotor at the same time, and then you can back the screws out. Now that the brake rotor has been removed from the hub, we can wash the wheel. Here's the wheel after it's been washed. The first thing I noticed was the D.I.D rim has either been anodized, powder coated, or painted silver. So when you look at it closer, you'll see scratches and scuff marks in the silver coating. So my idea of just cleaning up this rim and putting it on the bike is not going to happen. So I've decided to make a compromise to save some time here. What I'm going to do is polish the rim and the hub without disassembling the wheel. One of the keys to polishing anything and doing it the most efficient way possible is to use power tools. Now, you don't have to have power tools, but it helps. So what I'm doing here is I'm putting a 120 grit sandpaper in my block sander, and we're going to polish the flat part of the outer rim on both sides. And that'll take out any of those scuffs and any other defects. We're not going to just polish the outer rim here. We're also going to work on the hub a little bit just to kind of give it a better look. As you can see here, the casting is pretty rough. So we're going to use our barrel sander here on our Dremel tool and just see if we can kind of smooth that out just a little bit. You can see here, if my camera will focus, it's a really rough casting. So what we're going to do is we're going to put some cardboard behind here so we don't accidentally hit the spokes. And we're going to see if we can just kind of smooth this up a little bit. Now comes the not so fun part. We have to sand all the silver coating off the D.I.D rim. So that means hand sanding. So what I did is I started with 220 grit and then went to 320 and then to 600 grit. But it actually went pretty fast because the silver coating was not very thick and it sanded right off. All right, here's the rim after 600 grit sandpaper. You can see here it's getting smoothed out. The tough part is getting between the 2 close crossover spokes right there. There's actually, with a 40 spoke rim, so there's 10 of those areas you got to do. We're trying to get in between there really well. Overall, it's looking pretty good. So what we're going to do now is go to 1000 grit and then 1200 grit. Here's the wheel after 1000 and 1200 grit sandpaper. You can see it's starting to get shiny. So what we're going to do next is we're going to get out the buffer and begin the buffing process on this rim. I'm going to be using my standalone buffer here to buff the rim. What I had done is I took some duct tape and I duct taped the nut on the end of the buffing wheel just in case I bump it so I don't scratch the rim. Now, if you don't have one of these, you don't really need it. You can use your power drill and just get a buffer on the end of that, and that'll work just as well. Whenever polishing metal, always wear old clothes, long sleeves, gloves, eye protection, and a mask because you're going to get dirty. All right, here we are after the first pass with the big buffer, but we have a long way to go. We still need to get in between all the spokes, and we need to polish the hub as much as we can. This rim is going to take a lot of hand polishing to complete, but we're going to use the power tools as much as we can to help speed up that process. So what we're going to use here is a foam cone. And what I'm going to do is apply some mother's metal polish in between the spokes and use the foam cone to polish as much as we can. Whenever you're trying to do these smaller areas, like down in here and along the edges, the big buffing wheel is not going to be able to get in there. So what you're going to want to do is just put a smaller buffing wheel on the end of your drill. That's probably 3 to 4 inch wheel there. And just use some mother's polish. And you should be able to get in those spaces and make them look pretty good. Okay guys, here's the assembled wheel polished. When I first got this wheel, I told myself I didn't want a major project. So I made it a minor project by keeping the wheel assembled and polishing it. I think overall it turned out really well for the amount of time that I have in this wheel, which isn't really a lot. Now, if I would have taken it apart, it would have became a major project. And that's just something I didn't want at this time. I got enough of those. Let me turn the wheel around. You can kind of see it. This is a Russell brake rotor that I got in a parts lot about 5 years ago. And I polished it and then put it on the wheel. But once again, you know, looking at the wheel itself, for the money that we have in this, which isn't much, I think this wheel turned out really well, and I think it's going to look good on the bike.